The day I found out I was pregnant, I asked Chad for a divorce. Because I went to my assistant's birthday dinner, he asked, one brow lifting. Yes. Fine. He took the agreement and signed his name without hesitation. But for the next 3 months, I won't agree to get back together. And when the time comes, don't come crying and begging. We'd been together 7 years. He knew 3 months was the longest I could ever keep up the silent treatment. He was certain that without him, I wouldn't be able to go on. What he didn't know was that I had already scheduled the procedure and bought a small apartment in a northern city over 1,000 miles away. My mother used to say an unfaithful man was worse than a stray dog. This time, I wasn't turning back. Chapter 1. I slid the signed divorce papers into a folder and turned to leave. Chad spoke casually. I'll give you one more chance, Anna. Marriage isn't a game. I looked back at him. I'm serious. You always say that. He shook his head with a quiet laugh. Now you've even pulled out divorce papers. What's next? The crystal chandelier cast a soft glow over him as his fingers tapped lightly against the table, relaxed, assured. There won't be a next time, I said calmly. His hand paused. Chad seemed about to say something else when a sudden crack of thunder split the air outside. The phone on the table lit up at once. Chloe. A faintly mocking smile tugged at my lips. Chad only shrugged and put the call on speaker. The moment it connected, a young woman's voice came through, trembling and tearful. Mr. Shaw, it's pouring out. I'm stuck at the office and can't get a ride. There's thunder non-stop outside. I'm really scared. Chad didn't respond right away. He looked up at me instead. If this had happened before, I would have snatched the phone and ripped into her, warning Chad not to go pick her up. But now, with the divorce papers still in my hand, all I felt was a strange sense of relief. After a brief, uneasy silence, Chloe seemed to notice something was off. Is your wife there? She asked carefully. Without waiting for an answer, she hurried on, I don't mean anything by it. With the rain this bad, it's not convenient for you to come get me anyway. I was just wondering if I could stay in the office for the night, maybe use the small bedroom next to yours. If that makes her uncomfortable, I can explain. I promise I won't touch anything or make a mess. Are you there? Can you hear me? I couldn't help myself. I stepped forward and picked up the phone. Chloe? If I remember correctly, your job title is executive assistant. The girl on the other end sounded startled, stammering out a quiet, yes. So as an assistant, when extreme weather hits during overtime, your first instinct is to call your boss and cry about how scared you are? My voice stayed soft, almost gentle. You can't get a ride home. The company clearly has a staff lounge. And your solution is to ask to stay in the CEO's private bedroom. Is that right? Chloe fell silent. Your professional judgment is poor, and your sense of boundaries is even worse. At this hour, calling a married man and acting cute, didn't your parents ever teach you basic decency? I glanced at the clock. It was already 11 p.m. She'd only been with the company 3 months. Chad was known for being generous with his employees, there was no reason she should have been working this late. And even if she truly couldn't get home, the staff lounge had folding beds and basic supplies. Yet the moment Chloe opened her mouth, she asked to stay in the CEO's office. The small bedroom there was something Chad used when he worked late on projects. Sometimes I stayed there with him. My toiletries and sleepwear were still inside. How did she have the nerve to say she wanted to sleep there? Not to mention all the little things that had happened before, each one small, but together impossible to ignore. Even though I thought I'd prepared myself, the anger still rose, tight and sharp in my chest. I'm sorry, Chloe said quickly, her voice trembling. I didn't mean to overstep. Please don't argue with Mr. Shaw because of me. He's been really busy lately, and he's not feeling well. Then she broke into loud sobs. She cried like a child, yet had the sense not to hang up. The sound of her sniffling grated on my nerves. That's enough. Chad stood, snatched the phone back, and murmured a few quiet words of reassurance. She just graduated. She doesn't know any better. Why are you losing your temper with her? He frowned at me, completely oblivious to Chloe's little tricks. Such clumsy tactics. Was he really that unaware, or was he enjoying the attention? The anger that had been churning in my chest suddenly went still. I looked at Chad and felt, all at once, that everything about this had become meaningless. Chapter 2. It rained all night. Early the next morning, the moment I unlocked my phone, I saw a post my best friend Lily had sent me. The account name read, Mr. Shaw's personal assistant. Posted 1 hour ago. Private car pickup in a rainstorm, a comfort breakfast to lift my mood. Can you guess which angel of a CEO this belongs to? The first photo showed Chloe in the back seat of a Maybach, taking a selfie. The second showed her holding a Starbucks coffee, subtly raising the cup toward Chad, who was working a short distance away. A small heart was drawn on the coffee sleeve. I froze for a moment. Chad hadn't gone out last night. He must have sent the driver to pick her up. My phone buzzed again. Lily called this time. Anna, who the hell is this girl, acting like she's coming for your man? Does Chad even realize he's being played? Fire her already. The comments are all calling her the CEO's wife. It makes my skin crawl just reading it. I opened the account's profile. Barely a dozen posts, yet it already had close to 300,000 followers. It was filled with snippets of daily life between a clumsy assistant and a cold, powerful CEO, every line soaked in sugary, suggestive undertones. The fans were eating it up, flooding the comments with pleas for them to get married already. Lily kept ranting. She's got some nerve, making stuff up like this. Everyone knows Chad only ever shows any warmth around you. Since when would he bother tracking her cycle? And that sapphire necklace, wasn't that from your favorite jewelry brand? Her voice gradually softened. After a long pause, she asked quietly, Anna, are you crying? I covered the receiver and sniffed hard. No. I just caught a bit of a cold from the rain last night. Forget that. When are you coming back to the northern city? I want to go with you. Lily fell silent for a moment before speaking again. Did you and Chad fight because of that girl? We didn't fight. I looked out at the gray sky. A night had passed, but the glass was still damp, leftover droplets blurring the view outside. It's just, this city has had too much rain. I don't want to stay here anymore. When Chad signed the divorce papers last night, he hadn't hesitated for even a second. So what was there left for me to hold on to? Chapter 3. I told Lily about the pregnancy too. She shrieked on the other end of the line and insisted I come meet her immediately. By the time I arrived at the restaurant we'd agreed on, she was still stuck in traffic. Chad and I used to come here often. The staff all recognized me. The hostess spotted me and led me toward a private room with practiced ease. Mr. Shaw's already here. Watch your step. Chad was here too? I stopped in my tracks. Laughter and familiar voices drifted out from inside the room. I remember whenever this place had seasonal specials, Anna would beg you to bring her. Why didn't you invite her today? That was David, one of the senior executives. She's just throwing a tantrum. Ignore her, Chad replied, his voice as cool and detached as ever. This is really my fault, a soft, sugary voice chimed in. I shouldn't have worked so late and called Mr. Shaw in the middle of the night. Chloe was there too. All that over a phone call, another VP scoffed. Anna's temper just keeps getting worse every year. Chad, don't take this the wrong way, but she chased you for so long back then. And now that she finally got you, she doesn't even appreciate it. Always making a scene. Anna pursued Mr. Shaw first? Chloe cut in suddenly, unable to hide the hint of delight in her voice. I always thought. She trailed off, then sighed softly. Mr. Shaw treats her so well. He's so busy he barely has time to eat, yet he still makes time to celebrate every little occasion with her. And the moment something doesn't go her way, she throws a fit. I honestly feel bad for him. The room fell quiet for 2 seconds before the others burst into teasing laughter. See? Even your wife isn't as considerate as Chloe. Women get older and turn into tigresses. Young girls know how to care for a man. A chill crept into my chest. These were the same people who had fought alongside Chad in the early days. Back when the company was struggling, I'd paid out of pocket for equipment, sent fruit in the summers, late-night meals in the winters. They used to call me sister-in-law with such warmth. And this was what they said behind my back. I didn't want to hear another word. I turned to leave, but accidentally bumped into a server carrying a tray. She let out a startled cry. The plate of fresh seafood tipped over, spilling across the floor. The laughter inside stopped abruptly. The door to the private room swung open. Anna. Several of the executives stared at me, stunned. I lifted my head and immediately saw Chad seated at the head of the table. Chloe sat pressed close at his left, looking every bit like the lady of the house. Chapter 4. The hostess rushed over to clean up the mess. Fortunately, the young server hadn't been burned. I apologized, and she shook her head, cheeks flushed, before hurrying back to work. The entire time, Chad's gaze stayed fixed on me. David forced a smile and came over. "When did you get here? Why didn't you come in and sit down?" 15 minutes ago, I said flatly. "Go on. Don't let me interrupt." "Oh, come on, it's all a misunderstanding." "Chad, aren't you going to say something?" Several of them wore awkward smiles and stood, trying to coax me into taking a seat. Chloe suddenly pushed her chair back and stood up, pouring herself a glass of liquor. "Please don't take this the wrong way," she said softly. "No one meant anything by it." Her fingers trembled slightly as she lifted the glass. "Today's my first day officially promoted. Mr. Shaw invited a few of the VPs to celebrate, and I got a little emotional and said some things I shouldn't have. This is all my fault. Please don't stay upset with him because of me. I'll drink to apologize." She downed the entire glass in one gulp, immediately coughing, her face flushed red and her eyes watering. Chad frowned faintly and handed her a napkin. I let out a cold laugh. "You managed to say everything yourself and somehow pinned all the blame on me." Chloe lifted her head, her expression fragile yet stubborn. "After graduating, I came to this city alone. I don't have family or friends here. Mr. Shaw is the only person I trust and rely on. The rain was so heavy last night. I panicked and called him. You said I don't understand boundaries, and I accept that. But you insulted my parents too. I can't accept that." Her voice broke. At those words, a few of the executives exchanged glances. The way they looked at me carried a trace of disapproval. I let out a sharp, incredulous laugh, about to respond. Chad spoke first. "Anna didn't insult anyone." He looked at Chloe, his voice low and firm. "Drop it. This is over." Chloe nodded reluctantly, then mustered her courage, poured 2 more drinks, and walked over to me. "Please, let me make another toast to you. Will you forgive me?" This time, Chad didn't stop her. He knew I could hold my liquor. But I was pregnant. No matter whether this child would ever be born, I wasn't going to harm my body like this. I took the glass, turned my wrist, and poured it straight onto the floor. The room fell silent. Faces changed. Chloe's eyes filled with tears as she turned instinctively toward Chad for help. The next second, a sharp slap cracked across her face. "So you've got some nerve," Lily's voice rang out, sharp and furious. "Got every man in this room wrapped around your finger and thought no one would stand up for Anna?" The faint scent of roses drifted past me. Lily had arrived. Before anyone could react, she swept her gaze across the room and fixed it on Chad. "Chad, you're really just going to stand there while this little snake walks all over Anna? Do you even know she can't drink right now?" Chad looked at me, confusion and shock flashing across his face for a split second. "What do you mean she can't drink? That's none of your concern. Just take care of your assistant." I grabbed Lily, who was still fuming, and left the private room, leaving behind a mix of stunned and uneasy faces. Chapter 5. "Anna, you've seriously lost your edge," Lily said, taking a huge sip of her milk tea and pressing a hand to her chest in frustration. "Back in college, you handled all the girls orbiting around Chad like it was nothing. What happened today? Besides, you're pregnant with his child. What's there to be afraid of? You should have slapped her harder." I patted Lily's back gently and said in a quiet voice, "I asked Chad for a divorce last night. He agreed. So I'm not keeping the baby. I'm moving to the northern city." The string of bombshells made Lily choke on her drink. She coughed for a long time before finally catching her breath, and fell silent. "Anna, 7 years together. Can you really let that go?" she asked softly. I knew she wasn't trying to defend Chad. She was afraid I'd regret it. Afraid I'd end up hurting even more. After all, I'd loved Chad for 7 years. He'd become a part of my life, woven into everything. I watched a little girl in the distance holding a balloon and fell into thought. I'd asked myself that same question countless times over the past few days. Until something Lily said earlier suddenly clicked. She said I'd always handled the women around Chad with ease. But the truth was, I'd never been particularly strong. I cried even when arguing with my roommates. I wasn't good at pulling hair and fighting over men. All I ever had to do was tell Chad I felt jealous. And he would draw the line himself, distancing from any girl who got too close. It had never turned ugly like this before. This time, he'd rather sign the divorce papers than transfer Chloe away. That's when I knew there was no going back for us. Chapter 6. The first time I met Chad, the scene was almost dramatic. My roommate and his roommate were dating, and it turned out the guy had been seeing someone else behind her back. The day everything came out, my roommate dragged us along to confront him. Chad just happened to be there. The cheating boyfriend stammered, trying to get Chad to back him up, claiming he'd stayed in the dorm all night. But once Chad understood what was going on, his expression turned cold. I can't help you. Loyalty is the baseline in any relationship. His voice was calm and sharp, a boy in a faded plaid shirt, standing there under my roommate's sarcasm and threats, his eyes steady, as if defending something sacred. In that moment, something in my chest trembled. Yes. My standards in a partner had always been simple. Loyalty. The most basic thing, yet the hardest to find. As far back as I can remember, my parents fought constantly over that very issue. My father was handsome, charming, the kind of man women flocked to in his time. He spent his nights in clubs, rarely coming home, and when he did, there were often lipstick stains on his collar. My mother loved him. And hated him. She once held a knife to her own throat, forcing him to promise he'd stay away from other women. Every time, he'd soothe her with sweet words for a few days, then go right back to his nightlife. In the end, something inside her finally snapped. One winter day, she put on bright red lipstick, slipped into her favorite dress, held me close, and said her final words. Anna, never choose a man like your father. Then she turned, climbed to the roof of a nightclub, and jumped. Her body struck the snow below, blooming like a flower. I dreamed of that moment for years, night after night. I turned down one boy after another. Until the year I met Chad. I thought he was different from my father. At first, Chad showed no interest in me at all. People said he was famous in the physics department for being ice cold, someone who'd never been seen flirting with anyone. But the more distant he was, the more determined I became. He had a sensitive stomach, so I waited outside the dorm before sunrise to bring him breakfast. He loved philosophy, so I borrowed books he'd read from the library and posted reviews only he could see. He listened to obscure indie bands, so I hunted down out-of-print records across half the city and gave them to him as birthday gifts, pretending it was no big deal. That winter, I stood outside the dorm as usual, holding a warm bag of breakfast, waiting to walk to class with him. When he saw my nose and ears flushed from the cold, he let out a quiet sigh, took off his scarf, and wrapped it around me. Anna, he said softly, love yourself first. Then love someone else. I buried my face in the scarf, smiling so hard my eyes curved. Of course I loved myself. That was why I chose my partner so carefully. From then on, for 7 straight years, Chad's eyes, and his heart, held only me. Until Chloe appeared. Chapter 7. One evening in July, Chad came home late, saying his car had been scratched and sent in for repairs. I asked what happened, whether he was hurt. He shook his head, pulled me into his arms, and said something interesting had happened that day. HR had rejected a recent graduate during hiring a young girl. She hadn't taken it well. She showed up in the underground parking garage with her resume, trying to stop his car to ask for another chance. She nearly got hit. I frowned as I listened, about to say how dangerous that was. But then I noticed the look on Chad's face, lost in the memory, a faint smile playing at his lips, one he didn't even seem aware of. Something in my chest tightened for no reason. And everything that followed only confirmed it. Was it the way he suddenly started using cute emoji when texting? Or how he showed up 2 full hours late on my birthday? Or how my period wasn't even due yet, but he'd asked the housekeeper to prepare herbal soups and pack them in a thermos to bring to the office? And that necklace, meant to be my anniversary gift, he'd ordered one for Chloe too. There were too many things. Over the past 3 months, we'd lost count of how many times we'd argued because of her. He said Chloe reminded him of himself back then, poor background, but resilient, determined. When he talked about her worn-out canvas sneakers, there was a softness in his eyes, a trace of sympathy. He insisted he was only mentoring her as a junior colleague, yet time and again he crossed the line, trampling my dignity in the process. 2 days ago, during another explosive argument, I smashed the little pig figurine Chloe had given him. Chad's face turned cold. He slammed the door behind him and walked out without looking back. I broke down crying. When I finally went to the mirror to wash my face, I froze. The expression staring back at me looked exactly like my mother's all those years ago. Bitterness. Resentment. Desperation. Ugly. In that instant, I knew I had to leave. Chapter 8. I booked flights with Lily to the northern city and went home to pack. When I opened the door, Chloe was already there. She flinched for a split second when she saw me, then immediately straightened her posture. Anna, I came to help Mr. Shaw pack. Mr. Shaw's taking me east on a business trip. After saying that, Chloe watched me carefully, as if still wary after Lily's slap. I treated her like she wasn't there and walked straight into the bedroom. Chad was inside, pulling clothes from the closet. Ties and shirts were scattered across the bed. When he saw me, he pressed his lips together, then asked casually, "You weren't feeling well yesterday. Did your period come early?" I let out a dry, mocking laugh. "We're already divorced. No need to concern yourself." Stepping around the mess on the floor, I opened a drawer and began packing. Chad crossed his arms, his gaze fixed on me, studying my movements. After watching for a while, he suddenly let out a quiet laugh. "So you heard I'm heading east? Feeling insecure? Go on, tell me, when were you planning to secretly follow me there? I can have Chloe change her ticket. We'll just go together." I ignored him and stood on tiptoe, reaching for the suitcase on top of the wardrobe. Chad stepped forward to help. I tried to keep my distance, but he pulled me into his arms. "Enough," he murmured softly by my ear. "You've already slapped her. Still not satisfied?" This was his usual tactic. I frowned, about to push him away, when Chloe's voice came from the doorway. "Mr. Shaw. I'm a little thirsty. Can I go downstairs and buy a bottle of water?" Chad paused and looked at her. "There's water in the fridge. Just grab one." But Chloe shook her head quickly, that timid look returning. "Anna probably wouldn't like me touching her things. I'll just go to the convenience store downstairs." I laughed. "If you know I don't like it, why did you come here at all? Just here to get on my nerves?" Sensing the bite in my tone, Chloe's eyes reddened. She pulled her hand back from the doorframe. Chad's voice dropped. "I asked her to come. It's easier if we head to the airport together later." He turned to Chloe, gentler now. "You don't know the area well. Don't wander off. Just take water from the fridge." Chloe nodded, looking aggrieved, and left. As soon as she was gone, Chad looked straight into my eyes, his expression serious. "I don't get it. You can be so patient and kind with a waitress at a restaurant, but you keep targeting Chloe. She's barely out of college. It's normal if she makes mistakes." I curled my lips into a faint smile. "Because I'm petty and jealous," I said. "I see a female assistant around my husband and lose my mind. I even threaten divorce over it. Does that help you understand? Satisfied?" Chad stepped back half a pace, frowning deeply, disappointment written all over his face. "If that's how you're going to be, then don't come with me." "Who said I was going with you?" I let out a cold laugh. "Then why are you packing?" I didn't answer. I turned and opened the closet, but the moment I did, the scent of orange blossom hit me. I gagged. The diffuser inside had been replaced with a fragrance I hated. The exact same scent Chloe wore. Chad didn't realize what was happening at first. When he saw how pale I'd gone, his voice softened slightly. "Are you really feeling sick? Have you gone to the hospital yet?" I shook my head. "Just a stomach bug." He reached out and touched my forehead, as if about to say more. Chloe knocked again. "Mr. Shaw, we should leave now. We'll miss the flight." Chad glanced at the time, hesitated for a moment, and helped me sit on the bed. "Stay home for the next few days. Ask the housekeeper to cook something light for you," he said softly. "When I get back, I'll bring you something from out east." He kissed the top of my head, just like he always used to. As if the argument from moments ago had already been erased. As if I would, as always, stay home quietly and wait for him to come back. Chapter 9. After arriving in the business hub, Chad seemed to be trying to make peace. He sent me his schedule every day, right on time, checking in about my health. Just like before. I didn't reply. If anything, it almost made me laugh. He didn't need to tell me any of this. Chloe's posts were updating constantly. Golf clubs, private ski resorts, yacht parties, auctions. Wherever Chad went, she followed. If the work schedule involved confidentiality, she'd post about the food, the parties, the luxury. Those carefully curated glimpses into high society brought her a flood of attention and traffic. One highly liked comment even asked when she and the CEO were planning to have a baby, so they could sign up to be adopted. Chloe replied with a shy emoji and pinned the comment. The post quickly circulated within industry circles. Someone recognized Chad's blurred side profile in one of the photos. The tone in the comments began to shift. That's Chad Shaw from Vantage Tech. Pretty sure he married his college girlfriend right after graduation. Wait, so this blogger is the other woman? I've been shipping them this whole time. Gross. Unfollowed. Don't want this on my feed. Why is everyone only dragging the girl? Fine, I'll say it, men who cheat are trash. More and more comments like that appeared. Chloe couldn't keep up with deleting them. Eventually, she hid the posts and set her account to private. But the conversation had already spread. People started opening threads analyzing whether Mr. Shaw's personal assistant knowingly got involved with a married man. I was about to scroll past. Then I paused, went back, and put money behind the post. Let it get bigger. I've always enjoyed watching a spectacle unfold. A dull ache stirred low in my abdomen. I set my phone aside and took a sip of the herbal chicken soup Lily had brought me. On my first day in the northern city, I went straight to a private hospital and had the procedure. The doctor said I was slightly anemic and recommended I stay for observation, so I ended up resting there for a full week. There was none of the devastation I'd imagined. When I woke up after the surgery, I felt so calm it frightened me. The baby had been small, just over 40 days along, barely more than an embryo. I was relieved I hadn't brought it into this world. Children born to parents who don't love each other are like plants that never see sunlight. They always grow up struggling more than the rest. The bitter taste of medicine lingered in my mouth. Lily's mom had made the soup, and it was surprisingly good. I finished it in one go and picked up the draft agreement for the equity transfer. If nothing unexpected happened, Chad would be contacting me soon. Chapter 10. I hadn't expected him to come in person. I had just hung up after Lily called to warn me. And then he appeared outside my hospital room, travel-worn and breathless. Chad's face was pale, his expression frozen as he stared at me lying in the hospital bed. It took him a long time before he managed to speak, his voice rough. Why, are you an OB? I had a minor procedure, I answered calmly. Exactly what you're thinking. His body swayed as if he might collapse. A few passing nurses slowed, casting curious glances at the tall man standing there. I let out a quiet sigh. Come in. Close the door. I need to talk to you. Chad walked toward the bed like someone in a daze. Up close, I noticed the stubble along his jaw, the faint shadows under his eyes. His shirt was wrinkled, the collar creased. He must have taken the earliest flight to get here. I looked away and handed him a document. The divorce was rushed. We never properly settled the asset division. Vantage is your life's work. I don't want shares. I want $5 million in cash. And the house, the funds, the insurance, I want half of those. Chad flipped through the papers without lifting his head. His hands gradually began to tremble. He looked up at me, disbelief written all over his face. When did you prepare all this? I gave a faint, silent smile. While you were taking your personal assistant around the world to experience life and plan for a baby. Chad frowned and hurried to explain. If this is about that account, I've already had PR handle it. The news will be contained, and the account will be shut down soon. It won't have much impact. Chloe, he began, then hesitated. She'll be transferred to a branch office out of state. She won't be working as my assistant anymore. She said the social media thing was just a side project. She got carried away chasing traffic. None of that stuff was real. Chad spoke faster and faster. He looked at me with pain in his eyes, his hand trembling as he reached toward my stomach. Anna, it's been 7 years. Why does it have to end like this? Why? I slapped his hand away. Even now, you still think you didn't do anything wrong, don't you? Chapter 11. Chad froze for a second, then growled under his breath, barely containing his anger. What exactly did I do wrong? Other than work, Chloe and I never crossed any lines. I never did anything to betray you. A laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. I pressed a hand to my stomach, laughing so hard my eyes watered. So remembering your assistant's cycle, buying her a six-figure necklace for her birthday, being inseparable on business trips, even drinking from the same glass, those are all part of work now? Our Mr. Shaw is really something. So considerate. I gave a light, almost sincere round of applause. The color drained from his face. He pressed his lips together, and after a long moment, he spoke again. I just saw my old self in her. You don't understand. Back then I was the same, poor background, looked down on by everyone, struggling to find a job, grinding through everything on my own. I understand, I cut him off, closing my eyes. My voice trembled anyway, betraying me. I was the one who went through all of that with you. Have you forgotten, Chad? Those years as full of insecurity, bitterness, confusion, I'd protected the fragile pride of the boy he used to be. It didn't matter if I slipped and fell in the rain, my clothes soaked in mud. Saving for months just to buy him a discounted suit made me happier than buying 100 dresses for myself. On anniversaries, when all we could afford was street food, he'd feel guilty, eyes red, promising to make it up to me someday. I'd raise a paper cup toward a stray dog by the roadside and laugh, shouting that we'd make it big one day. I was the one who walked with him, step by step, from a cramped rental to the wider world he now lived in. And yet he couldn't wait to pluck the fruits of that journey and offer them to another girl. Do you know why I never liked celebrating my birthday alone? Chad blinked, caught off guard, not understanding why I'd suddenly changed the subject. Because every year on my birthday, I dream about the day my mom died. She was driven insane by my father's affairs. She chose death over staying for me. I traced the edge of the white hospital sheet with my fingers, my voice soft. And this year, you left me too. Just to go fix Chloe's broken computer. Chad tried to explain. I shook my head and looked him straight in the eye. You said it yourself, loyalty is the baseline in a relationship. The words he'd spoken 7 years ago hit him like a bullet. He clutched his hair, his face twisted in pain. I won't go through that again. This marriage is over. You should leave. Chapter 12. Chad refused. Lily hurled every insult she could think of at him and even slapped him twice. Still, every single day, without fail, he showed up outside my hospital room with expensive supplements, pastries I liked, and fresh irises. I didn't touch any of it. Everything was returned, unopened. This went on until the day before I was discharged. Then David called. He said the situation with Chloe had been picked up by competitors. Public opinion was spiraling, and Vantage's stock had taken a heavy hit. Worried the shares I held would lose too much value, I called Chad in and told him to go back and deal with the company. I'll go back too, I added. His eyes lit up. But I won't attend any press conference. And I'm not helping you clear your name. This mess is yours. You fix it. When David called earlier, he hadn't just asked me to persuade Chad to return. He had another request. Investor relations and legal suggested I stand beside Chad at a press conference and deny the infidelity rumors. Nothing actually happened between them, he said. At least give Chad a chance. You've been together for years. How many women has he turned down for you? If he really wanted something to happen, it would have happened long ago. This is just Chloe being young and foolish. Be the bigger person. Don't hold it against her. Vantage only recognizes you as Mrs. Shaw, no one else. I let out a short laugh. I'm not that generous. And apparently, I'm just an aging, jealous woman anyway. I can't help you. And Chad and I are already divorced. As for being Mrs. Shaw, whoever wants that title can have it. David fell silent. I hung up without another word. I took a deep breath. One last trip back. There was still something I had to do. Chapter 13. I had planned to travel separately from Chad, but he checked my flight and followed me to the airport anyway, like a shadow. I didn't bother acknowledging him. I put on my sunglasses and slept through the entire trip. He kept his distance, quietly trailing behind, never once trying to approach. We didn't exchange a single word. That was how we arrived back at the house. Chloe had somehow gotten wind of it and was already waiting there. She looked thinner after just a few days. Dressed simply, almost like a college student, no makeup, completely different from the polished, confident image she'd had in her designer dress before. The moment she saw Chad, her eyes reddened. Mr. Shaw. HR suspended me. They even threw my things out. Chad's face hardened. I ordered it. Report to the branch office next month. But I'm your assistant. Chloe tried to protest. You know exactly what you did. Suspension and reassignment is already a light penalty. His tone was cold as he stepped past her, moving to take me inside. Chloe followed, eyes brimming with tears. But I only posted a few things. What girl hasn't fantasized about a powerful CEO falling in love with her? Her voice broke into sobs. I admit some of it was exaggerated, but you need topics to get traffic on social media. You know my situation, Mr. Shaw. My parents are both disabled, and my younger brother is still in school. They all depend on me to send money home. The pressure on me is huge. I just wanted to find a way to earn more. Please, give me one more chance. She grabbed Chad's sleeve, crying as if her heart were breaking. Quite a performance. I folded my arms and watched, unhurried. Between the necklace and everything else, in just a few months at the company Chloe had already received gifts and bonuses from Chad worth well over $250,000. Not to mention the couture gowns for events, private club memberships, and all the other perks. I had looked into her background. Her parents were indeed in poor health, but they were hard-working people, not the kind who would live off their daughter. Chloe wasn't panicking because she had no way out. She just couldn't bear to lose the life she had now. Chad seemed to realize that too. He shook Chloe's hand off in disgust. Enough. If you don't leave now, I'll call security. Chloe kept crying, trying to defend herself. I didn't expect that post to blow up like that. Someone must have been pushing it behind the scenes. As if finding an opening, she turned toward me, eyes red. Anna, was it you? I know you don't like me, but Vantage is Mr. Shaw's life's work. How could you do something like this just to vent your anger? Shut up. Chad roared. Stop throwing dirt at Anna. What she's done for Vantage is none of your business. Chloe let out a tearful laugh. Mr. Shaw, don't you see it even now? Look at her, standing there all high and mighty. All she ever does is demand emotional attention, spend your money, live off you. Has she ever cared about your health? Does she even know how hard it was for you to build everything from nothing? When you were working yourself to exhaustion for the company, barely having time to eat, she was sitting at home living like a rich wife, picking fights whenever she felt like it. What has she ever done for you? Someone like her doesn't deserve to be with you. Chloe's face twisted, her eyes burning with hatred as she looked at me. Strangely, I felt a sense of relief. I raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. Looks like you didn't learn your lesson last time. When I was struggling alongside Chad, you were probably still daydreaming about your overnight success. What gives you the right to say I'm not worthy of him? Idiot. Security arrived and dragged Chloe away. She kept crying out Chad's name again and again, but he never responded. Chapter 14. Chad held a press conference on his own. He apologized to supporters and announced he would step down temporarily without affecting the company's operations. His sincerity, along with the launch of a corporate charity initiative to shift attention, managed to stabilize the situation and limit the damage. After the scene Chloe caused that day, Chad canceled her transfer to the branch office altogether. She refused to give up and tried the same trick again, locking his car in the underground garage. Only this time, David was the one driving. He couldn't stop in time and ended up sending Chloe straight to the hospital. She cried and made a scene there, demanding to see Chad. Someone filmed it and posted it online, sparking another wave of mockery. By the time I saw the video, I had already finalized the transfer of my shares and the division of our assets. The day before I returned to the northern city, I went to visit my mother. Her grave was well kept. A bouquet of purple irises rested there, along with her favorite pastries. Without expression, I gathered them into a plastic bag and replaced them with the ones I had brought. Mom, I won't be able to throw away the things he brings anymore. Just pretend you didn't see them, okay? I brushed my fingers over the gentle smile in the photo and spoke softly. They were all from James Hawthorne. My biological father. After my mother jumped, everyone thought he would remarry soon. Instead, he became a different person. After the funeral, he sat at home for 3 days and nights without moving, then shaved his head. He never went back to the clubs, never got involved with other women again. Most days he drank himself into a stupor, and when he was sober, he clutched my mother's photo and cried. Whenever the elderly neighbor mentioned him, she would shake her head and sigh. He should have treated her better when she was alive. What's the point of crying now? That's right. What's the point? If love has to be measured by the pain that comes after separation, then all it really is mutual torment. Chapter 15. It started to rain lightly as I walked down the mountain. Autumn was just around the corner. The air carried a faint chill. From a distance, I saw Chad standing beneath a street sign, holding an umbrella, as if he'd been waiting for a long time. The moment he noticed me, he jogged over, tilting the umbrella toward me, then pulled a warm paper bag of roasted chestnuts from his coat. I saw someone selling these by the road, he said. I remember you always crave roasted chestnuts every fall. He held the bag out to me carefully, like a treasure. The sweet, smoky scent drifted through the air. I didn't take it. I just watched as one side of his shoulder slowly grew damp from the rain. Chad, I said. Do you remember the morning we got together? He blinked in surprise, then nodded, a flicker of hope crossing his face. I do. It was snowing that day. You were waiting outside the dorm with breakfast for me, your face red from the cold. I adjusted his umbrella, angling it to cover his shoulder. That was when you told me, love yourself first. Then love someone else. Then I lowered my head and pulled another umbrella from my bag. If I had to forget everything and start over with you, it would only feel like punishment. Some things, once broken, can't be made whole again. So let's both take care of ourselves from now on. The light in Chad's eyes faded, little by little. I'm sorry. And don't come looking for me anymore. I have a lot to do. Renovate my place. Adopt a dog. Open a studio of my own. I opened my umbrella and walked away into the distance. Lily had just sent me a photo. The apartment I'd picked had a south-facing balcony. The afternoon sun poured in, turning the floor a soft shade of gold. It was beautiful. This rain ends here for me. At this point, my love life is a public service announcement. Free of charge.